Maya had been living a double life for 2 years now, and she was exhausted. Not the kind of tired that sleep could fix, but the kind that settled deep in your bones when you spent every day pretending everything was fine. She met him at work. Alexander was the CEO of the architecture firm where she'd landed her dream job 3 years ago. He was brilliant, ambitious, and unfortunately exactly her type. The attraction was instant, but Maya knew better. He was her boss. He was engaged. She should have kept her distance, but late nights at the office have a way of breaking down walls. They started with work conversations that stretched past midnight, then coffee runs that felt too personal. Then one evening, while reviewing blueprints for a major project, their hands touched over the same design sheet and everything changed. Alexander told her his engagement wasn't real, not in the way that mattered. It was a business arrangement, he said. His family and Victoria's family had been planning this merger for years. He didn't love her. He couldn't love her. But he could love Maya. She believed him. Or maybe she just wanted to believe him badly enough that the truth didn't matter. For 2 years, they built a relationship in the shadows. Weekend trips to his cabin upstate where no one knew them. Late-night phone calls when he was supposed to be at business dinners. Stolen kisses in his office after everyone had gone home. He made her feel seen in a way no one else ever had. When he looked at her, really looked at her, she felt like the most important person in the world, but only when they were alone. Maya told herself it was enough. She convinced herself that what they had was special, precisely because it was private. She made excuses for why he couldn't tell his family yet, why the timing wasn't right, why they needed to wait just a little longer, just until the business merger was complete, just until his father retired, just until after the holidays. There was always another reason to wait. She stopped going to family gatherings because lying to her cousins and aunts about her love life was too painful. She turned down dates from nice guys who actually wanted to take her to dinner in public. She spent holidays alone because Alexander always had family obligations with Victoria. Her whole life had become about waiting for stolen moments with a man who would never truly be hers. In public, Maya was just another employee. Alexander would pass her in the hallway with barely a nod. During company meetings, he never made eye contact. At office parties, he'd arrive with Victoria on his arm, looking every bit the perfect couple, while Maya stood in the corner nursing a drink and pretending her heart wasn't breaking. Her best friend Lisa saw right through it. They'd been friends since college, and Lisa never held back when she thought Maya was making a mistake. "You're better than this," Lisa told her over dinner one night. "You're sneaking around like you're doing something wrong, but he's the one who should be ashamed. He gets to have everything. The perfect fiancé, the family approval, and you on the side whenever he wants." Maya pushed her food around her plate. "It's not like that. You don't understand how complicated his situation is. I understand that you've been waiting for 2 years for him to choose you, and he hasn't." Lisa's voice was gentle but firm. "How much longer are you going to wait?" Maya didn't have an answer. The truth was she'd been asking herself the same question every time Alexander canceled plans because Victoria needed him at some event. Every time she watched him smile for photos with his fiancée, while she scrolled through social media alone in her apartment. Every time she had to lie to her own family about why she was always single, because the man she loved belonged to someone else. Her mother would have been so disappointed. Maya thought about that often. Her mom had passed away 3 years ago, right before Maya got this job. She'd raised Maya alone, never talking much about Maya's father except to say he wasn't in the picture. Her mom had been strong, independent, proud. She'd taught Maya to never settle for less than she deserved. And here Maya was, settling for scraps of affection from a man who couldn't even acknowledge her in daylight. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning. Maya arrived at work to find the office buzzing with excitement. At first she thought maybe they'd landed a new major client. Then she saw the envelope on her desk. It was an invitation. Cream-colored paper, elegant calligraphy, expensive everything. She already knew what it was before she opened it. "Mr. Alexander Hayes and Miss Victoria Ashford request the honor of your presence at their wedding." The date was set for 3 months away. The venue was some exclusive estate upstate. Dress code, black tie. Maya's hands shook as she read through the details. Then she flipped to the back where there was a separate card listing the invited guests from the company. Her eyes scanned down the names. Senior partners, department heads, even some of the junior architects who'd been there less time than her. Her name wasn't there. She read through the list 3 times, hoping she'd missed it. But no. After 2 years of secret love, after countless promises that she mattered to him, she wasn't even worth a pity invitation to watch him marry someone else. Maya sat at her desk for a long time, just staring at that invitation. Around her, co-workers chatted excitedly about what they'd wear, whether they'd bring dates, how beautiful the venue was supposed to be. Nobody noticed that she'd gone completely silent. Her phone buzzed. A text from Alexander. "Can you come to my office? Need to discuss the Richardson project." The Richardson project. Of course, even now, even today, it was business as usual. She was supposed to smile and pretend and keep being his secret while he planned his very public wedding. Something inside Maya finally snapped. She stood up, walked to the elevator, and rode up to the executive floor. But instead of going to Alexander's office, she went to her own desk in the small workspace they'd given her near the senior partners. She pulled out a piece of company letterhead and wrote her resignation. 2 weeks' notice. Professional, clean. No explanations. Then she wrote a second note. This one was personal. "I can't do this anymore. I thought I could wait. I thought eventually you'd choose me. But getting that wedding invitation without my name on it made me realize something. I was never really a choice for you. I was just convenient. I deserve better than being someone's secret. I deserve someone who's proud to be with me. I hope you and Victoria are happy. Goodbye." She left the resignation letter with HR. The personal note she put in an envelope and slid under Alexander's office door. Then she packed up her desk, ignored the confused looks from co-workers, and walked out of the building. Her phone started ringing before she even made it to her car. Alexander. She declined the call. He called again and again. Text messages flooded in. "Maya, what's going on? Please call me back. We need to talk about this. Don't make any decisions right now. Let's meet tonight." She blocked his number and drove home. That night, Maya started looking at job postings in other cities. Portland had some interesting opportunities. So did Seattle. Anywhere far enough away that she could start over. Somewhere Alexander Hayes couldn't find her. Somewhere she could finally stop being someone's secret and start being her own person again. She didn't know it then, but leaving was about to uncover a truth that would change everything. A truth that would make the past 2 years even more devastating than she could have imagined. A truth that would explain why Alexander's parents had always looked at her with such strange expressions. Why his mother had been so kind to her. Why his father had seemed almost guilty whenever they spoke. But for now, in this moment, Maya just felt relief. The kind of relief that comes from finally walking away from something that was slowly destroying you. She was done being Alexander Hayes' secret. Whatever came next, at least it would be real. Alexander stared at the resignation letter on his desk for the 3rd time that day. 2 weeks' notice. Professional and cold. No explanation beyond the standard corporate language about pursuing other opportunities. But it was the other note, the personal one, that he kept reading over and over. He'd tried calling Maya at least 50 times in the past 3 days. Every call went straight to voicemail. His text messages showed as delivered but never read. She'd blocked him. Actually blocked him. In 2 years, they'd never gone more than a few hours without talking, and now there was just silence. She'll come back, he told himself. She just needs time to cool off. But even as he thought it, something felt different this time. Final. His assistant knocked on the door. "Mr. Hayes, your mother is here to see you." Alexander looked up, surprised. His mother, Eleanor, rarely came to the office unannounced. "Send her in." Eleanor Hayes walked in with the grace of someone who'd spent her entire life in high society. She was elegant, poised, and far more perceptive than Alexander ever gave her credit for. She took one look at her son and sighed. "You look terrible." "Thanks, Mom. Really needed to hear that today." She sat down across from him, her eyes scanning the papers on his desk. "I heard Maya Chen resigned. That's a shame. She was brilliant. Your father always spoke highly of her work." Alexander's jaw tightened. "She had other opportunities, did she?" Eleanor's tone was knowing. Or did she finally get tired of being treated like a secret? The words hit Alexander like a punch to the gut. "What are you talking about?" "Oh, please, Alexander. I'm your mother. Do you really think I didn't notice the way you looked at her? The way you always made excuses to work late when she was on a project? The weekend trips you took when Victoria was out of town?" She shook her head. I may be old-fashioned, but I'm not blind. Alexander slumped in his chair. There was no point in denying it now. It wasn't supposed to happen. It never is. Eleanor's voice softened slightly. What are you going to do about it? What can I do? The wedding is in 3 months. The families have already merged the business operations. Dad would never forgive me if I backed out now. Your father would survive, Eleanor said quietly. The question is, can you survive marrying someone you don't love while the woman you actually care about walks out of your life? Before Alexander could respond, his secretary buzzed in again. Sir, your father needs to see you in his office immediately. He says it's urgent. Alexander excused himself and headed to his father's corner office. Richard Hayes was standing by the window, his shoulders tense. He didn't turn around when Alexander entered. Close the door, Richard said. Alexander did, a sense of unease creeping up his spine. His father's voice sounded strained, almost afraid. Dad, what's going on? Richard finally turned around, and Alexander was shocked to see how pale he looked. His father was always composed, always in control. But right now he looked like a man carrying a terrible weight. There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago. Richard moved to his desk and pulled out an old photograph from a drawer. Do you recognize this woman? Alexander looked at the photo. It showed a young woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. There was something familiar about her, but he couldn't place it. No. Should I? Her name was Sarah Chen. I met her 28 years ago during a business trip to San Francisco. Your mother and I were going through a rough patch. We'd separated for about 6 months. Richard's voice was heavy with regret. Sarah and I had a relationship. It was brief, only a few months, but it was real. Alexander's stomach began to sink. Chen. Maya's last name was Chen. When your mother and I reconciled, I tried to contact Sarah to explain, to make sure she was okay. But she'd disappeared. Changed her number. Moved away. I thought maybe that was for the best. A clean break. Richard's hands trembled slightly as he held the photograph. I didn't know she was pregnant. The room started spinning. Alexander gripped the edge of the desk. 3 weeks ago, I came to your office to discuss the quarterly reports. Maya wasn't there, but her desk was. There was a small photo frame, just a personal item most people keep at work. It was a picture of her with an older woman. Richard's voice cracked. It was Sarah. Older, but unmistakably her. I'd recognize her anywhere. No. The word came out as barely a whisper. No, that's not possible. I hired a private investigator. Discreetly, I had to be sure before I said anything. He confirmed it yesterday. Sarah Chen moved to Portland when she found out she was pregnant. She raised a daughter alone. That daughter is Maya. Alexander felt like he was going to be sick. All the blood drained from his face. The room was too hot, too small, too suffocating. You're telling me that Maya is my sister? Half-sister, Richard said quietly, as if that somehow made it better. Alexander, I am so sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know until recently. When I found out, I didn't know how to tell you. I was trying to figure out the right way, the right time. Your mother knows. She's known for 3 weeks. We've been sick about it. That's why his mother had come to the office. That's why she'd been acting strange lately. That's why she'd brought up Maya just now. They both knew. Alexander's mind raced through every moment of the past 2 years. Every kiss. Every intimate conversation. Every time they'd been together. His stomach lurched and he barely made it to the private bathroom before he threw up. When he came back out, his father was still standing there, looking older than Alexander had ever seen him. Does she know? Alexander managed to ask. No, at least I don't think so. Her mother passed away 3 years ago, right before Maya started working here. I don't know what Sarah told her about her father. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything except my name. Alexander thought about Maya's resignation letter, about how she'd left so suddenly. She didn't know. She left because she was tired of being his secret, not because she'd discovered the truth. She had no idea. I have to tell her, Alexander said. Are you sure that's wise? Maybe it's better to let her move on. Let her think you were just a mistake she made. Telling her will destroy her. Not telling her will destroy her more, Alexander said firmly. She deserves to know the truth. She deserves to know why. He couldn't finish the sentence. Why her father abandoned her mother. Why she grew up without that side of her family. Why the man she'd fallen in love with could never actually be with her. The wedding, Richard said. You'll have to call it off. I know. Victoria's family will be furious. The business merger might fall apart, I don't care. And Alexander realized he truly didn't. Not about the business. Not about the society expectations. Not about any of it. I need to find Maya. She's moved. Do you know where? Richard handed him a folder. The private investigator's report. It had an address in Portland. One more thing, Richard said as Alexander headed for the door. Your mother and I want to make this right. Maya is family. She's your sister. She's my daughter. I failed her mother, but I won't fail her. When you tell her the truth, tell her that too. Alexander left his father's office in a daze. He walked past his own office, past his assistant calling his name, straight to the elevator. He went home, packed a bag, and booked the next flight to Portland. He didn't know how he was going to tell Maya. He didn't know how either of them would survive this truth. But she deserved to know. She deserved to understand why everything had been so wrong from the start. The woman he'd loved was his sister. And telling her was going to break both their hearts all over again. Maya's new apartment in Portland was small, but it was hers. No memories of Alexander. No reminders of the life she'd left behind. Just clean walls, secondhand furniture, and the hope of a fresh start. She'd been there for 2 weeks when the doorbell rang. It was a Saturday afternoon. Maya had spent the morning unpacking boxes and setting up her home office. She'd landed an interview with a boutique architecture firm for Monday, and was actually feeling optimistic for the first time in months. When she opened the door, that optimism shattered instantly. Alexander stood there and he looked awful. His usually perfect hair was messy. His eyes were red-rimmed like he hadn't slept in days. He was wearing jeans and a wrinkled shirt, so unlike his normal polished appearance that Maya almost didn't recognize him. How did you find me? Her voice came out colder than she intended. Maya, please. I need to talk to you. It's important. We have nothing to talk about. She started to close the door, but he put his hand against it. Please, just give me 10 minutes. After that, if you want me to leave, I'll leave and never bother you again. But there's something you need to know. Something in his voice made her pause. It wasn't the usual charm or persuasion. It was desperation mixed with something else. Fear, maybe. Or grief. Against her better judgment, she stepped aside and let him in. They sat in her tiny living room, an awkward distance between them. Maya crossed her arms, her body language making it clear this wasn't a friendly visit. You have 10 minutes. Alexander took a shaky breath. There's no easy way to say this, so I'm just going to say it. I found out something about your family. About my family. About us. He paused, seeming to gather courage. My father had a relationship with your mother 28 years ago. Maya blinked. What are you talking about? Your mother, Sarah Chen. My father met her in San Francisco when my parents were separated. They were together for a few months before my parents got back together. He tried to find her afterward, but she'd disappeared. Maya's heart started pounding. My mother never talked about my father. She said he wasn't in the picture, that he didn't matter. That's because she probably didn't know how to find him either, or maybe she didn't want to. Alexander's hands were trembling. Maya, she was pregnant when she left. My father didn't know. He didn't find out until 3 weeks ago. The room started spinning. Maya gripped the edge of the couch. You're lying. I wish I was. Alexander pulled out his phone and showed her a photograph. It was old, clearly from decades ago. A young woman with dark hair and a bright smile stood next to a man Maya didn't recognize, but the woman was definitely her mother. Younger, but unmistakably her. That's your father, Alexander said quietly. Richard Hayes. Maya couldn't breathe. All those years of wondering who her father was. All those nights as a kid when she'd asked her mother and gotten vague answers. All the time she'd felt incomplete, like there was a piece of her missing, and now she knew. Her father was Richard Hayes, which meant, oh God. The realization hit her like a freight train. You're my brother. Half-brother, Alexander whispered, but the distinction felt meaningless. Maya stood up abruptly, her whole body shaking. No, this isn't happening. This can't be happening, Maya, don't. She backed away from him. Don't come near me. Don't say anything. I need you to leave. Right now. Please, just let me. Get out! She was shouting now, tears streaming down her face. Get out of my apartment. Get out of my life. Alexander stood, his own face wet with tears. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry? Maya laughed, but it was a broken, bitter sound. You're sorry? We spent 2 years together. 2 years! And all that time we were... She couldn't even say it out loud. The word felt too horrible to speak. I didn't know, Alexander said desperately. I swear I didn't know. My father just found out. If I had known, I never would have. But you did, we did. Maya wrapped her arms around herself, feeling like she might fall apart. Every time we were together, every kiss, every night we spent, she felt sick. Actually physically sick. My father wants to meet you. He wants to explain. He wants to make things right. Make things right? Maya's voice rose. How is he supposed to make this right? He abandoned my mother. She raised me alone, working 2 jobs, struggling every single day, and he was living in his mansion with his perfect family. He didn't know about you, Alexander repeated. She left without telling him. Maybe she had good reasons. Maybe she knew he'd go back to his wife and she didn't want to be the complication in his perfect life. Maya was pacing now, her mind racing. All those years I wondered why I wasn't enough for my father to stick around. Turns out I had a father all along. He just had another family he cared about more. That's not fair. He didn't know you existed. And you? Maya turned on him, anger blazing in her eyes. What's your excuse? You knew I existed. You knew exactly where I was. And you still treated me like I was something to be ashamed of, something to hide away. Alexander flinched. You're right. I was a coward. I should have been honest from the start. I should have broken off my engagement. I should have chosen you. Except you couldn't have chosen me anyway, could you? Because we're family. Because what we did was... She couldn't finish the sentence. They stood there in silence for a long moment. The weight of the truth hung between them, crushing and inescapable. My whole life has been a lie, Maya said finally, her voice hollow. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about my family, about us. None of it was real. What we felt was real, Alexander said softly. What we had, the connection we shared, that was real. We just didn't know the whole truth. The truth makes everything else meaningless. Maya wiped her eyes angrily. Don't you understand? Every moment we spent together is tainted now. I can't even think about the good times without wanting to throw up. You've destroyed everything. Your father destroyed everything. I know, Alexander said. I know, and I hate it. I hate that this happened. I hate that we didn't know. I hate that I can't fix it. Maya walked to the door and opened it. I want you to leave now. Maya, please. We need to figure out how to deal with this. There's nothing to figure out. You're going to go back to your life and marry Victoria like you planned. I'm going to stay here and try to forget any of this ever happened. We're going to pretend we never met. I can't do that. You're my sister. That means something. It means we never see each other again. Maya's voice was firm despite her tears. It means you leave me alone and let me rebuild my life without you in it. Can you do that? Can you give me that much? Alexander looked at her for a long moment, and Maya could see her own pain reflected in his eyes. Whatever they'd had, whatever they'd felt for each other, it was destroyed now. There was no going back. No fixing this. If that's what you want, he said finally, it's what I need. He walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life. And finding out the truth was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Not because I regret knowing, but because it means I lost you twice. You never really had me, Maya said quietly. Neither of us had anything real. It was all built on lies and secrets. Alexander nodded slowly, then walked out. Maya closed the door behind him and sank to the floor, finally letting herself break down completely. She'd lost the man she loved. She'd discovered her father had been alive all along. She'd learned that the relationship she'd treasured was something she could never think about again, without feeling ashamed. Everything was ruined. And Maya had no idea how she was ever going to put herself back together again. Maya didn't leave her apartment for 3 days after Alexander walked out. She called in sick to her job interview, ignored calls from her friends, and spent most of her time staring at old photo albums of her mother. There were so many questions she'd never get to ask now. Why didn't you tell me about him? Did you love him? Did he love you? Were you trying to protect me or yourself? Her mother had always been strong, independent, proud. She'd worked as a nurse, pulling double shifts to keep them afloat. She'd never complained, never acted bitter about raising Maya alone. But now Maya wondered how much pain her mother had hidden. How many nights had she cried over the man who didn't know about their daughter? On the 4th day, there was a knock at the door. Maya almost didn't answer, assuming it was Alexander again. But when she checked the peephole, she saw an older woman with kind eyes and elegant clothes. Eleanor Hayes, Alexander's mother. Maya recognized her from photos she'd seen online when she'd stupidly Googled Alexander's family during their relationship. Maya opened the door slowly. "Mrs. Hayes, please call me Eleanor." "May I come in?" Maya hesitated, then stepped aside. She was too emotionally exhausted to fight anymore. They sat in the same spots where Alexander had delivered his bombshell just days ago. Eleanor looked around the modest apartment with no judgment, just quiet observation. "I'm not here to make excuses," Eleanor began. "Not for my husband, not for my son, not for anyone. I'm here because you deserve better than what you've gotten from this family." Maya didn't know what to say to that. "I've known about you for 3 weeks. When Richard found out, he told me immediately. We've been sick about it ever since." Eleanor's hands folded in her lap. "I want you to know that if I had known about you 28 years ago, I would have made sure you were taken care of. You're Richard's daughter. That makes you family regardless of the circumstances." "I don't want to be part of your family," Maya said quietly. "I understand, but I need you to hear the full story. Not to change your mind, but because you deserve to know the truth about your mother and father." Maya wanted to refuse, to tell this woman to leave, but another part of her desperately needed answers. "Fine." Eleanor took a deep breath. 28 years ago, Richard and I were having serious problems. We'd been trying to have a baby for years with no success. The doctor said it was my fault, that I had fertility issues. Richard never blamed me, but I blamed myself. I became depressed, withdrawn. I pushed him away. She paused, her eyes distant with memory. We separated for 6 months. It wasn't official, just a break. Richard threw himself into work. He took a project in San Francisco, staying there for weeks at a time. That's where he met your mother. She was a nurse at a hospital where one of his employees had been injured. They struck up a conversation and it developed into something more. Maya felt a strange disconnect, hearing about her mother's past like this, a version of her mother she'd never known. When Richard and I started talking again, working on our marriage, he wanted to do the right thing by Sarah. He tried to find her to explain, to make sure she understood it wasn't casual for him, but she'd moved. Changed her number. He assumed she'd moved on and wanted a clean break. Eleanor's voice grew softer. What he didn't know was that she was pregnant with you. Why didn't she tell him? Maya asked, the question that had been haunting her. I've thought about that a lot. Maybe she found out after he'd already left. Maybe she tried to contact him and couldn't get through. Or maybe, Eleanor met Maya's eyes. Maybe she knew he'd gone back to his wife and didn't want to be the other woman. Didn't want her child to be seen as a mistake or a complication. That sounded like her mother. Proud, private, protective. 6 months after Richard and I got back together, I got pregnant. Against all odds, after years of trying, we had Alexander. Eleanor smiled sadly. He was our miracle. But knowing now that Richard had another child out there, one who grew up without a father while we celebrated our miracle, it breaks my heart. I don't need your pity, Maya said, but there was no heat in her words. She was too tired. It's not pity, it's regret and responsibility. Eleanor reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. Richard wants to meet you. When you're ready, if you're ever ready. He knows he doesn't deserve your forgiveness, but he wants the chance to know his daughter. Maya stared at the envelope but didn't take it. There's also information about a trust fund. Richard set it up as soon as he confirmed you were his daughter. It's not guilt money. It's what you should have had all along. What your mother should have had to make raising you easier. I don't want his money. It's not about what you want. It's about what's right. Your mother struggled because Richard wasn't there. He can't change the past, but he can make sure your future is secure. Eleanor placed the envelope on the coffee table. Think about it. There's no pressure, no timeline, but the offer stands. They sat in silence for a moment. What about Alexander? Maya asked finally. Did he call off the wedding? He did, the day after he found out. Victoria's family was furious, but Victoria herself was surprisingly understanding once she learned the truth. She said she'd rather find out now than marry someone whose heart belonged elsewhere. Eleanor paused. Even though his heart can never have what it wants, Maya felt tears prick her eyes again. She thought she'd cried herself dry, but apparently not. Alexander is devastated, Eleanor continued. He's not eating, barely sleeping. He quit his job at the company. Said he couldn't work there anymore, not with all the memories. He's talking about moving abroad, starting over somewhere new. Good, Maya said, but she didn't mean it. The thought of Alexander's suffering gave her no satisfaction, just more pain. He asked me to tell you something. He said you deserve to know that leaving you wasn't about you not being good enough. He said he was a coward who chose the easy path over the right one, and that discovering the truth wasn't the universe punishing him. It was him finally understanding what he'd lost. Maya wiped her eyes. Why are you telling me this? Because you both deserve better than how this ended. Not together, obviously. That can never happen. But maybe someday you can have a relationship as siblings. Maybe you can find a way to be family. The way you should have been from the start. I can't even think about that right now. I know. I'm not asking you to. I just want you to know that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, we're here. Richard, Alexander, and me. We're your family whether you want us or not. Eleanor stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. Your mother raised an incredible woman. She did that alone, without help, without support. That takes strength most people don't have. You have that same strength. I can see it in you. She smiled gently. Whatever you decide about us, about the money, about everything else, you're going to be okay. Because you're Sarah Chen's daughter, and that means you're a survivor. After Eleanor left, Maya sat alone in the quiet apartment. She thought about her mother working those double shifts. About Richard Hayes living his perfect life, not knowing he had another child. About Alexander, who she'd loved, who'd hurt her, who'd turned out to be her brother. She thought about the envelope on the table and the choices ahead of her. For the first time since this nightmare began, Maya didn't feel quite so destroyed. She felt something else. Something that might eventually become acceptance. She wasn't there yet. Not even close. But maybe Eleanor was right. Maybe she would be okay, because she was Sarah Chen's daughter, and her mother had taught her how to survive anything. 6 months passed before Maya felt ready to open the envelope Eleanor had left. In that time, she'd built a new life in Portland. She got the job at the architecture firm and threw herself into work. She made new friends who knew nothing about her past. She went to therapy twice a week, slowly working through the trauma and confusion. Some days were better than others. Some days she could go hours without thinking about Alexander or the mess they'd made. Other days the weight of it all crushed her, but she was surviving, just like her mother had taught her. The envelope contained several things. A letter from Richard explaining everything from his perspective. Bank information for the trust fund Eleanor had mentioned. And a phone number with a simple note. When you're ready, no pressure. Your father. Maya stared at those words for a long time. Your father. She'd gone 28 years without one, and now she had to decide if she wanted to know the man who'd unknowingly abandoned her. After weeks of thinking, Maya realized she had questions only Richard could answer. Questions about her mother, about their relationship, about the past. She couldn't move forward without knowing the truth. A week later, Maya found herself sitting in a quiet coffee shop in downtown Portland. She'd chosen a public place, somewhere safe and neutral. She arrived 15 minutes early, her hands shaking as she stirred her coffee for the third time. When Richard Hayes walked in, Maya recognized him immediately. He looked like Alexander, or rather, Alexander looked like him. Same build, same walk, same eyes. But Richard looked older, more worn down, like he'd been carrying a heavy weight for months. He spotted her and his face transformed. Not quite a smile, but something close. Relief, maybe. Or hope. Maya. He said her name like it was precious. Mr. Hayes. Please call me Richard. He sat down across from her, his hands clasped tightly on the table. Thank you for agreeing to meet me. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure I would either. They sat in awkward silence for a moment. Maya studied his face, looking for pieces of herself. She had his nose, she realized, and the shape of his hands. You look like her, Richard said softly. Your mother. You have her smile, her expressions. God, you even sit the same way she did. Tell me about her. About you and her. The real story, so he did. Richard told her about meeting her mother at the hospital. About how Sarah had been kind to his injured employee, going above and beyond her duties. About how they'd started talking and those talks had turned into coffee dates, then dinners, then something more. She was brilliant, Richard said, his eyes distant with memory. Sharp and funny and so full of life. She didn't care that I came from money or ran a company. She saw me as just Richard, not Richard Hayes of Hayes Industries. That was rare in my world. But you went back to your wife, I did. Richard didn't try to defend himself. Eleanor and I had history, a foundation. When she reached out, wanting to try again, I thought it was the right thing to do. The mature thing. I tried to find Sarah to explain, to make sure she understood that what we had mattered to me. But she'd vanished. She moved back to Portland. She found out she was pregnant after you'd already gone. Maya's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. She worked 2 jobs to support us. I wore second-hand clothes and we lived in a tiny apartment. She never complained, but I knew things were hard. Richard's face crumpled. If I had known, God, Maya, if I had known about you, I would have been there. I would have supported you both. Eleanor would have understood. We could have figured something out, but you didn't know. And my mom made the choice not to tell you. I've been trying to understand why. I think I know, Richard said quietly. I was married. Well separated, but going back to my wife. Your mother was proud. She probably didn't want to be seen as the woman who trapped a married man with a baby. She probably thought she was doing the right thing by handling it alone. Maya felt tears slide down her cheeks. She sacrificed everything for me. And all this time I had a father who could have helped. A whole family I never knew about. I can't change the past, Richard said, and his own eyes were wet. But I want to be part of your future, however you'll let me. I know I don't deserve the title of father. I didn't earn it. But I'd like the chance to try. To be your family. Maya wiped her eyes. I don't know if I can do that, not yet. Maybe not ever. I understand. But I do have questions. About my mom. About you, about... She hesitated. About Alexander. Richard's expression grew pained. What do you want to know? Is he okay? No, Richard was honest. He moved to London. Started working for a different company, completely unrelated to our business. He calls once a month, but the conversations are brief. He's not the same person he was before. Maya felt a pang in her chest. Does he ask about me? Every time. Eleanor tells him you're doing well, building a life in Portland. He never asks for more than that. I think he's afraid of hurting you more than he already has. We hurt each other, Maya said quietly. Neither of us knew the truth. We were both just trying to love each other in an impossible situation. Do you think you'll ever want to see him? As your brother? Maya was silent for a long time. I don't know. Right now, every memory I have of him is tangled up with shame and pain. I can't separate the man I loved from the brother I didn't know I had. That's understandable. But maybe someday, when it doesn't hurt so much, when I can think about him without feeling like I'm going to break apart. Maya met Richard's eyes. I need time. Lots of time. You can have all the time you need, Richard said. I've missed 28 years of your life. I'm not going to rush whatever relationship we might be able to build. They talked for 2 more hours. Richard told her about Alexander's childhood, about the Hayes family business, about her grandparents who'd passed away years ago. Maya told him about growing up with her mother, about her love of architecture, about the life she was building now. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was a start. When they said goodbye, Richard hesitated, then asked, Can we do this again? Maybe in a few weeks? Maya considered it. Yeah, we can do this again. As she walked back to her apartment, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in months. Not quite peace, but something close. Acceptance, maybe. Or just the beginning of healing. She thought about her mother and wished she could talk to her one more time. To tell her that she understood now why she'd made the choices she did. To tell her that she'd met Richard and he was sorry. To tell her that even though the path had been painful, she was finding her way through it. Her mother had been her hero growing up. Working those long shifts, never missing a school event, always making sure Maya had what she needed even when money was tight. Now Maya understood the full weight of what her mother had carried, raising a child alone while keeping a secret that big.